And good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? I've got my new computer set up. The studio is not quite done, which is why I have the boring green screen behind me today. But how's my sound coming through? Is it better than yesterday or not as good as yesterday? Go ahead and give me a quick mic check if you could, to let me know that you're hearing me and everything's going through. Oh, good morning, Johanna. Is the setter sound better or worse than yesterday? It's perfect. That's what I want to hear. Fantastic. Okay, good deal. So I'll have my green screen up behind me and I'll be in my office again tomorrow, but right now I'm sitting sort of in the matrix, if you will. That's what we're going to do today. I'm glad to see that we have a couple of people here. It's good to see you, Dimitro. Thanks for coming today. All right, so today we're going to be talking about Chapter 4, the coping process. So we've talked a lot about stress so far, but I haven't really given you any good ideas on, how to fix it. Whoa, I'm floating around there. And so we're going to talk a little bit about coping strategies. If you remember, on Tuesday we talked about non-optimal coping strategies. Today we're going to talk about optimal coping strategies, okay? So, oops, let me go back to my PowerPoint. There we go. So what we're going to do today is we're going to talk about Albert Ellis's appraisal focused coping strategy, and we're going to talk about some other different positive coping strategies, but I'm going to focus a lot on Albert Ellis, okay? Let me see. Hold on real quick. Oh, no. Let me see if I can find something real quick. Video capture device. Hold on just a second. Apologize. Okay. Let me see if I can find the camera. There we go. Is it my second one? Yep, that's exactly. Okay. View. Edit. Let's see. Edit. And transform. Stretch the screen. In case I have to write some stuff down today. I apologize. I'm just trying to get everything set up here. All right. Stay with me, folks. Stay with me. I promise I'm going to get this thing together. All right. So, let's talk about these coping strategies today. So, constructive coping. If you remember yesterday, I was talking about getting angry or deluding yourself or just not doing anything. And I suggested to you that those are non-optimal coping approaches. And I challenged you to identify one of those coping strategies in you. Do any of you want to own up to using a non-optimal coaching strategy? I got a couple of you in class today. I told you that I was bad about using aggression and anger. Were either of you helpless? Are either of you in denial? What ways in which do you cope with stress non-optimally? Today we're going to talk about constructive coping, okay? And that refers to the efforts to deal with stressful events that are judged to be relatively healthful. So there are better ways to deal with the stressors that we have in our life. Constructive coping, again, is going to be flexible, but it's going to involve confronting problems directly. It's going to require that you engage in things that are that require effort. It's going to take work on your part. Life is not easy. It's going to take your ability to look at things honestly as you want them to be, as they are, rather than as you want them to be. It's going to represent you being able to recognize and manage some of your emotional reactions that are disruptive. So my temper hasn't gotten better, but by being aware of it, sometimes my outcomes are better. And then you're going to have to learn how to exert some control over potentially harmful or destructive habitual behaviors. So constructive coping isn't as easy as just blowing up and getting angry. It's not as easy as just covering your head and hoping things go away. It's actually going to take real effort to do. And so when you folks hear me talk today, don't say, oh my God, of course, that's easy to talk about it. It's hard to do. I'm not saying it's not hard to do, but it's something that you and I need to work on if we are going to have happier and more productive lives. Today we're going to talk about three sort of categories of constructive coping. We're going to talk about appraisal focused, then we're going to talk about emotion focused, and then we're going to talk about problem focused strategies. So how are these different? Well, your appraisal strategies are just learning how to look at things in a different light. A lot of times we look at things from our own selfish moment-to-moment perspective, and what we need to do is be able to telescope out and look at things for their long-term implications. We need to change the way we appraise events. Then we need to learn how to control the emotional responses that we have to events. We have to find healthy ways to release our pent-up emotions. We have to find ways to distract ourselves from temporary stressors. We have to learn how to manage our hostile feelings. And you know, if you can go to the gym or meditate, holy cow, it would be much better for you, right? And then we're going to talk finally about problem-focused strategies, which is, you know, learning how to confront the problem, because some problems need to be confronted, or how to find help from other people when confronting these problems. I don't know if you're like me, but I hate to ask for help. But learning how to ask for help is actually can be part of a healthy coping strategy that you develop. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these three types of responses to stress that are optimal, and we're going to talk about why you should have them and when we'll typically see them. Okay, now I want to talk specifically today about Albert Ellis and REBT. Rational Emotive Behavior Therapy suggests that it is our appraisal of events that create our emotional responses to the world, right? And so let me see, where's my there's my pen. So most of the time, if we go, oh, can you still hear me? Yes, you can still hear me. Most of us think that we have this sort of activating event. Car breaks down. Okay, and that leads to a consequence. This is the worst day ever. Okay? Now, it's really simple, it's stupid. He says that what we need, what we have to do is we have to change the belief. Is it going to be helpful or unhelpful? Oh my goodness, I butchered unhelpful, right? So it's really not, what we have to do is we have to work on this in the middle in order to change the consequences. If you have this activating event and it automatically leads you to have the worst day ever, then of course you're going to experience stress and you're going to experience the negative effects of stress. He says, however, if we can learn how to adjust the belief in the middle, it will lead us to a happier way of dealing with stress. So let's go back to it. People develop habitual ways of appraising the events that happen to them. And these habits of engaging in negative appraisals or beliefs are often associated with catastrophic thinking. So let's see. Car breaks down. down, excuse me. Actually, I wrote it out incorrectly. Let me write this out correctly. Car breaks down. This is the worst ever. And that way I feel stress. Okay? So what he argues is that this is a habit. This is a habit. And we need to change our habits. Okay? Does that make sense? So our habits of engaging in negative appraisals are often associated with catastrophic thinking, which exaggerates the magnitude of our problems and the stress. And what he suggests we do, and you're going to say, duh, this is so stupid, Chris. We need to develop positive or realistic and or optimistic habits of appraisals to allow for constructive coping. Now, here's the thing. Think about this yourself. How often do you engage in these sort of things? Thinking, I must have love and affection from certain people. I must always do well in class or at work. I must behave competently. I must always be good and perfect. And people must always be considerate of me. And things must always go the way I like. Do you ever use words like must or should? I ought to do this. I always respond negatively this way. This never goes right. Do you use words like should, ought, always, never, and must? These are what Albert Ellis would say, these are masturbations. We need to quit masturbating so much, okay? Instead, because if we do this, if we use these kinds of statements, when things don't go right, it will be catastrophic. If I must have love and affection from my best friend and it doesn't happen, then that's the worst thing ever. If I never do well in a class and I do poorly in this class, then I will say this is the worst thing ever. What he argues is that people use these terms, and we use them habitually, and it leads us to catastrophic thinking. All right, and so this is actually the bottom line in a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy. What they do is they try to teach you how to reinterpret the events that happen to you. Okay. So let's say something bad happens to you. So let's say, how could we do this? Negative emotional states are not the product of things that happen to us, but are our irrational beliefs about what these events mean. In order to change our consequences, we need to learn how to develop the ability to identify our irrational beliefs. And sometimes I even use the term, and he actually even uses the term D, to dispute a belief, right? So let's say this. I want you folks to help me, those of you that are still on. Let's think about this. I lost my job. Okay? Now, let's think about this. Let's go back to our PowerPoint presentation. What's a negative way that we can interpret that? What's a negative way to interpret that? I lost my job. Can somebody tell me what's a negative way to interpret that? What's something that you could say that's representative of a person that's not an optimistic kind of person? Anybody? Johanna? What's a bad way to think about? What's the first thing that comes across your mind when you think, I lost my job? Johanna, what would you think if you lost your job? That's the A. This is the B. I'll lose everything. It's the end of my life. There you go. I'll lose everything. Okay, great. It's the end of my life, right? And that's going to lead to a feeling of hopelessness. Now, what's a different way to interpret that? I knew that was going to happen. Okay, right. Or it always happens. That's another B. And that leads to feelings of frustration, right? Now, here's what I'm saying. Frustration, hopelessness, these are not good coping states. What's a different way to interpret that? Can somebody give me a healthy way to interpret that? A, I lost my job. What's a different way to look at that? Can anybody? Can anybody interpret that? B, I could say I can get help from friends for a while. Or we can say I can find a better job. Right? Or we can say I can now get another job, adjust my hours. Okay? Now here's the deal. Now I could, there you go. Now I can find a job that I really like. There you go. Nota. And what's the consequence on that? Hopeful. Positive. Okay? Hopeful. Positive. So the idea, what we want to do is we want to learn how to reinterpret these events that happen in our life. Now, you folks are probably saying, Chris, you're stupid. Bad events are still bad events. I get that. I get that. But here's the deal. I applied for my dream job last year. My dream job in Asheville. I so wanted to be in Asheville at a really hippie 4-year college. And this was the perfect job for me. But I didn't get the job. And so my negative event, so for me, it was A, didn't get job. Now, I could have gone with B, I'm not any good. Okay, and that's going to lead to feelings of hopelessness. Or I could say be positive. I could say, now I can focus on the traveling I wanted to do. Okay, and that leads me to feel hopeful, happy, excited. Okay, so that's what we want to do. Now, the reason this matters is because if you're like me, you have a certain way of looking at events. You see them the same way all the time, every time. So every time something negative comes down the pipeline, I'll bet you use 3 or 4 statements to evaluate it negatively. What you would do with a CBT therapist, a cognitive behavioral therapist, if you ever went to see a therapist, is they would help you to identify when you are making those negative self-statements. And then they would teach you a couple of strategies. Let's practice some alternate things I could say in the moment. Because in the moment it's hard to find something good. But what you need to do is you need to identify yourself. As soon as something happens and you start to say something negative, catch yourself and say, hey, that's the event. That's that stress activating mindset that I have. And then you have to practice replacing it with another mindset. So I tend to always get angry when things happen. And so my thought is always, you know what? it won't matter 5 years from now. It won't matter 5 years from now. It won't matter 5 years from now. Now, does that stop me from getting angry every time something negative happens? No. But I tell you what, that thought, if I'm able to pull it into my mind, that helps me about 50% of the time. So I don't lose my temper as much. I don't get stressed out about bad things quite as much as I used to. Okay? Let's see, back to the top. Okay? So it's as easy as A, C, B, and this D, this different way of interpreting the event. Okay? Now, how many of you look at things and laugh? Do any of you laugh at the misfortunes that you have? You know, one of the ways that I dealt with not getting that job was making lots and lots of jokes about it when I talked to my wife. I talked about how pathetic an employee you could be and still beat me. I talked about all the things that were wrong with my resume. I made jokes at my own expense about how God knew I wanted to live there and was punishing me. And so I like to make lots of jokes. And sometimes I find that humor helps take the edge off of life as well. So it can lessen the negative impact on stress for many reasons. If you laugh about an event, actually it will lead to that more optimistic and that that better behavioral belief that I was mentioning on the earlier slide. If you can start laughing, what you will tend to do is you will sort of find yourself drifting towards a positive appraisal of what happened. You'll just have a better mindset on what happened to you that was negative. You know what? Laughing is just a good emotion to feel. And so if you can create a little bit of humor, it creates the positive emotion. And you know what? When you're laughing, people will laugh with you and want to be around you. If you're talking about how something is so terrible, what you're going to find is that people tend not to want to be around you as much. So by using humor to appraise the things that happen to you, you can hopefully create that positive mindset in yourself and that positive emotion in yourself, and you're more appealing to the people who would support you in that event. Now, this requires you to develop a little bit of emotional intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence is something that we all have. It's sort of our intelligence quotient. Some people are better at dealing with their emotions than are others. So, emotional intelligence is your ability to perceive and express emotion and to use emotions to facilitate thought, understanding, and to reason with emotion and regulate your emotion. So, knowing what the other person needs to hear in this situation to calm them down is a quality of emotional intelligence. Knowing what's going on in your own emotions and being able to control your own emotions, those are forms of emotional intelligence. Being able to read the emotions in other people and to know when somebody's mad or somebody's bored or somebody's happy, that's a form of emotional intelligence. So when we talk about this second strategy for buffering stress, we can learn to be more intelligent about our own emotions. Okay? And so one of the things we can do is we can strive to build our emotional intelligence. So emotional intelligence, the ability to perceive emotions in yourself and others, to know how your emotions and other people's emotions shape the way they think and act, being able to understand the conflicting emotions that you may feel in your system, and your ability to regulate especially your negative emotions. These are all qualities of emotional intelligence, right? So if you would think about yourself, which of these four components of emotional intelligence are you the weakest at? Do you have difficulty regulating your emotions? Or do you have difficulty when you have conflicting emotions? Or do you have difficulty seeing how emotions are important sometimes? Or do you not notice when you're mad or when other people are mad? I don't know about you, but I would say that regulating my emotions, especially my negative ones, is probably my most difficult part of emotional intelligence. Avoiding flying off the handle is very difficult for me. Now, why do we care about emotional intelligence? Well, when you have better emotional intelligence, you have a better group of friends who act as a buffer against stress. Being the person who can't control their emotions, being the person that doesn't understand when other people are sad, these are things that are not going to lead to a big friend group and are going to cost you those people who could very well save you from the negative effects of stress. You're going to be when that cortisol is draining through your system because you are emotionally unstable, that's going to impact your physical health. Having these negative emotional states is going to affect your mental health. You know what? You're going to be a better leader if you can control your emotions. And being a leader is part of getting that big job promotion that you want. If your boss doesn't think you can control the emotions or respond effectively to a group of people, they're not going to want to give you that job. All right? And people who keep their emotions under control can a lot of times stop themselves and see when it is appropriate and easy to fix a problem instead of worrying about a problem. I don't know if any of you have ever been around a person who has a problem going on, and instead of fixing the very simple problem, they decide that they want to stress out about it. They want to get angry about it. They want to go to their friends and complain about it. And you say, well, Michelle, why don't you fix this easy problem? If you're lonely, go out and do something social next week. Don't sit in your house. But sometimes people with poor emotional intelligence don't know how to fix their problems. Okay? And people with low emotional intelligence are also going to be more likely to experience burnout. Okay? Now, one of the things, like I said, I need to work on is letting go of my anger. One of the ways in which you can manage the negative feelings associated with anger is to learn how to forgive other people. Okay, forgiveness. It's not a natural thing for us. When people hurt me and hurt my feelings, I want to hurt them back. And that's not the way to deal effectively with your emotions and to get over the stress of these negative events. I know it goes counter to your instincts, but being the kind of person who can forgive others and get past wrongs is going to lead to better adjustment and well-being. And what I've noticed, especially for men, for my friends, it's hard for them to talk about their feelings, right? And they tend to suppress their feelings, and they only come out one way, as anger. And I'll be honest with you, my son CJ sort of has this problem of sharing his emotions. And really the only emotion he'll ever share with you is his anger. And I could tell that sometimes he's anxious, sometimes he's afraid, sometimes he doesn't feel confident, sometimes he's not happy. But instead of showing you that sensitive emotion, he bottles it up and tries to hide it, and it comes out in terms of anger from him. And I am that way to a certain degree. And this anger tends to stress on your nervous system, right, in your body. Now, one of the things that I've gotten better at, that my son needs to start doing, is learning how to disclose to people when you're feeling these emotions. If you're embarrassed, if you're shy, if you're sad, if you're lonely, these seem like negative emotions, but if you bottle these things up, if you bottle these things up, they can come out in hostility. So one of the things that I meditate on, there's a loving kindness. There's lots of different kinds of meditation, but the one that I try to do occasionally is the loving kindness. And the thing is, you actually think about people that you know and like differently. And one of the important parts of that, at least as I've learned it, is you pick somebody that you absolutely do not like, and you spend 15 or 20 minutes just thinking good thoughts for them and just thinking positivity about them. And if we can learn how to forgive people and to start talking about the emotions and the way that people hurt us, we can release ourselves from this pent-up energy, and it can and it doesn't come out in hostility or anger towards other people. Okay, as I suggested to you, meditation, it's a great strategy, at least that I have learned to control my own emotions. And basically, meditation is just a mental exercise where you try to control your attention. You ever notice how your mind bounces around and you're thinking about lots of different things? I'll bet you as I'm telling you this lecture, you're thinking about lots of different things, and only a few of those things are actually related to this lecture, right? You're bouncing around and your consciousness is all over the place. Well, what you do in meditation is you take your consciousness and you force yourself to focus on one thing. You find a focal point. And so you find yourself a quiet environment, you get yourself in a comfortable position, right? And I've been to different meditation masters, and some of them have different preferences about how you sit. But basically you just want to sit with your back straight and your hands in your lap, so you can sit kind of like I'm sitting right now so that you can breathe. And they want you to put your hands here. Some people will want you to maybe make a shape with them or something. It's completely up to you. You don't have to sit cross-legged. Where I meditate, we just sit on folding chairs. And you just sit there, and the idea is to maintain good posture. And what you do is we focus on some sort of mental device for 15 minutes at a time. And we'll do different sets of these meditation periods. Sometimes you focus on your nose. Sometimes there'll be a candle flame. Like I said, sometimes you just close your eyes and you can focus on an image that you want. I focus out at this place where it's got a nice view, and there's a tree way out in the distance that I focus on. So basically you pick one thing and you tell yourself that you are going to think about and look at that one thing. And you're going to notice your mind wanders away from that one thing. And what you do in meditation is you don't feel bad. You just pull your mind back to that thing you're supposed to be focusing on. And you'll focus and you'll focus and you'll focus, and then your mind will wander again. When you realize you're wandering, pull yourself back into that thing and focus again. And then your mind might start wandering, and when you realize that, you pull it back in. And you just spend 15 to 20 minutes trying to focus your consciousness. And what this does is this is going to decrease your heart rate and your breathing. You're going to slow down. You're going to increase your oxygen consumption, and you're going to decrease your oxygen consumption and your carbon dioxide elimination. Your oxygen consumption and your carbon dioxide elimination are going to indicate a state of deep relaxation. So basically what you're doing by controlling your mind and not letting it bounce all over the place is you are decreasing your level of arousal and going into a state of relaxation. How deep, it depends upon how far you want to go and how well you can focus. But whatever you do, the meditation will make you feel better. I promise. I am the worst meditator there ever was, and yet I still get a lot out of this meditation. Okay? Now, here's the neat thing. The benefits do not stop at the end of your meditation time. Along with the decrease in heart rate, the respiration rate, oxygen consumption, and carbon dioxide elimination, and all of these characteristics that occur while you're in meditation, you're actually going to have lower levels of stress hormone, lower anxiety, a better mood, and sense of control outside of your meditation time. Now, is this going to happen the first time you meditate? Absolutely not. But if you get into the habit of taking 15 minutes out of your day to stop and focus your mind in a meditative state, you will find that over a while you will start to experience these long-term stress-reducing effects. Now, I know you folks, do any of you meditate? If you don't meditate, you're probably looking at me going, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But I swear to God, it really works, and I feel so much better than I used to. I really am able to focus and stay a little more relaxed throughout the day. So I think you would be very well served if you tried to meditate a little bit. Now, I meditate because I'm not as spiritual a person as others are. I don't go to a church or anything like that, so I try to meditate. But you know what? If you're not a meditator, having a sense of spirituality, having a church family, whatever religion it is, having a church family, having a religious family is going to make you feel better. Whether it's Hindu, Zoroastrianism, Christianity, Muslim, whatever religion you find yourself in, if you can find a sense of spirituality, it will help you control your emotions and deal with stress more effectively. Spirituality is a great means of coping with stress. And you know, the neat thing is the things they teach you in church are really going to be some of the practical concepts that I've been talking about. They just put them within a religious context. So you're going to have to learn how to reappraise events. You know, I come from a church background, a Christian background, and so people in my family will say when something bad happens, this must be God's will. You know what? That's a reappraisal strategy. In the Christian background that I come from, forgiving people of their sins, of their transgressions against you, is one of the fundamental aspects of the Christian church. Meditation, going to a quiet place where you hear music and you sit and think about some higher being. You'll see that in many religious places. All of these things are sort of religiously based practices that I've already mentioned as being non-religiously based. So having a sense of spirituality and going to some sort of religious center is going to provide you all three of these sort of appraisal related strategies, and it's also going to provide the social support, because going to a religious center always includes an automatic group of people who will bond with you and help take care of you. So there's really nothing wrong with having a sense of spirituality. Now, one of the things I talk about in my developmental psych class is that spiritual involvement is actually linked with better physical and mental health in older age, and also a bit of longevity. So it's actually going to help you live a little bit longer and better life. And then, you know, one of the reasons that I am a little bit turned off by some of the people in my local church is because of their involvement on an angry church. Unfortunately, a couple of the Christian organizations that I was engaged with as a younger man focused an awful lot on how people were wrong and going to hell. and who was going to get punishment and who was not going to get punishment. And so I, at least for me, felt that that was not a spiritual environment that I needed to be involved in. And your book down here is in the PowerPoint is going to suggest that to you. Okay, and then you know what? Some people find their religion in a gym. I do go to a gym 5 or 6 days a week, and there are people in there that really make the gym their stress relieving place. And you know what? Regular exercisers do seem to have better emotional control and less emotional distress. It's something about the endorphins and the other hormones that are released when you work out that definitely can help you to have a better time dealing with stress. So if you don't, you can go to the gym and walk on the Walkman or jog a little bit or do whatever you want, but try to do it regularly. You know, if you remember when you were a kid, we used to run outside and play every day, and then we grow up and we never run outside and play again. You need to get back into the habit of playing every day. Now, we as adults, we play a little bit differently. I play at the gym on the Walkman, on the treadmill. You know what? You can join a basketball league. I used to play in a baseball league. There are lots of sports leagues if you want to play that way. But the key is we need to play because play reduces stress, right? Now, so how are ways that we could deal with stress? Let me go back and just quickly run through this. I suggested to you that there are different ways to confront stress that is positive, and I suggested to you that that if you are flexible in using these strategies, it will help you deal with the experience of stress. I don't know what each and every one of you are going through. It's difficult, who knows, and no matter how bad your life is, you can make it better with the way you appraise things and with you trying to control your emotional state. So like I said, learn how to reappraise the things that happen to you. Yes, there is bad in every negative outcome, but there are also hidden positives that you can learn to find, okay? Change your appraisal style. Learn how to laugh at the bad things and the stressful things that happen to you. It creates a better mood, it leads you to have more positive appraisals, and it helps build friendships. And friendships are the things they're the things that are going to provide support to you in stressful times. Okay, learn how to manage your emotions better. That is, develop your emotional intelligence. Learn how to control your negative emotions. Learn how your emotions shape your behaving and thinking, and learn how to accurately identify your own emotions, and learn how to let go of that anger by forgiving people if you can. That boss that fired you, that boyfriend or girlfriend that treated you poorly, that teacher that's not being fair to you. And learn how to work through your emotions by being willing to experience and talk about them, right? I then suggested to you that things that I do that helped me is I exercise and I meditate. Is it making me a better person? No, but it does help me deal with the emotions, the strong emotions that I feel as an angry kind of person. And you can go to church if go to a religious environment if you think that will help you, right? Now, sometimes putting on a happy face will not make the stress-inducing problem go away. So what we have to do is use systematic problem solving to solve problems and reduce stress. You know what? If your rent is due and you don't have the rent money, no amount of appraisal is going to change that problem. You can control your emotions, but you still have to pay that rent. It's the difference between dealing with an in-law you don't like at Christmas or dealing with a coworker that sucks. Those are things that you can learn how to appraise or control your emotions or move around. But the true coping person learns how to confront and identify, confront, and solve the real problems that they feel. Sometimes putting on a happy face will not make it go away. Use systematic problem solving to solve problems to solve problems and reduce stress. Here's my problem. I will tell you my problem. Okay, so I was obese at 45. I was 5 foot 6 inches, 210 pounds. That's obese. Heart rate up, BP up, blood sugar up, cholesterol up. I had some problems, and my doctor said, Chris, you have these problems. You have to deal with this problem. Now, of course, I was angry and upset, and I was really mad at being called obese because I didn't like that term, but that's what it was. And he gave me two. So in a sense, what you can say is I had to identify the problem. And my doctor clarified the problem for me. Chris, you are obese. And he gave me two options, 2A or 2B. So here's what the doctor told me. You need medication. And I said, Doctor, I don't want medication. So the doctor then said, okay, or lose 50 pounds. Okay, so this was me looking at my options, generated courses of alternatives. He said you can either go on medication, Chris, for your blood pressure, your cholesterol, and all that. I'm like, Doc, I really don't want to be on medicine at 45 for the rest of my life, especially those statins. He said, well, your other option is to lose a lot of weight. And so what I did was, over the course of 5 months, I learned how to eat differently and how to exercise differently. I did not go on a diet. I had what's known as a lifestyle change. And how did I seek help? Well, I got myself an online app. I started watching YouTube videos, and I found myself a buddy at the gym who was where I wanted to be, who could talk to me. And what I did was, over the course of 5 months, I learned how to eat the right foods in the right amount, and I burned off all that excess weight by spending an hour in the gym 7 days a week. And that's a way in which I decided to sort out my problem. Now, Johanna, I've talked to you a little bit, and you've said that since you don't want to get school loans and you had the difficulty with that other school that you were at, I forget the name of it, you said it turned out that wasn't the school for you and you'd wasted some credit hours, and now you're using the VA bill, and the question is, do you want to work more and make it difficult to go on school, or are you going to try to budget yourself? You, Johanna, have a problem that you have. And in talking to you in class last week, it was very clear that you decided to meet your problem, cope with your difficulty head on, and provide yourself with a solution to work through that problem. That demonstrates great coping skill, Johanna, because you didn't say, man, it's not fair that I don't have enough money to do everything I want. It's not right. You didn't stick your head in the dirt. And you actually sat down and carefully looked at your options. You clarified the problem. You generated courses of alternatives, and you picked the alternative that you think is best for you. And you told me that you didn't want school loans, but you didn't want this, so you were really, really budgeting carefully. And so you evaluated your alternatives, and you're selecting a course of action. I would say, Johanna, that is the best coping that I have seen in a long time from a student. I like the way you talked about your challenges and how you were dealing with it. That's what we call a problem-focused coping strategy. But as I suggested, what you also need to do is, along the way, is you learn how to use appraisal in controlling your emotions to supplement your great problem-solving coping strategies. And Johanna, if I had to say, based upon my 2 hours of interaction with you in the webinars that we've been in, hearing how you talk about things and how you cope with things, I have a feeling that you are a person who uses these optimal coping strategies to help you be more successful as a person, right? And it also, just going on quickly, don't have but a couple of seconds, you're probably the kind of person that does a good job managing your time because you're a future-oriented person. I can tell you're thinking about what's going to happen 6, 8, 9 months down the road, what road you have to go to get where you're going. And you know, you're probably going to be better at time management than other people who are just thinking about their experiences and what I'm going through right now and are not thinking long term. And I think your future orientation is going to make you better at time management. It's going to allow you to develop more objective appraisal strategies. So you're going to know when to use coping, problem focused versus emotional or appraisal focused coping. And I'll bet you're the kind of person who's going to be flexible enough to use these different coping strategies when needed. Okay. Thank you very much for those of you that managed to stay through the entire lecture. We're going to be talking about health behaviors on Wednesday, tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. And I'm going to be giving you, on Thursday, I'm actually going to be giving you my actual weight loss plan. If you need to lose 25 or 30 pounds and you don't know how you're going to do it, I can show you exactly how I did it. And you're going to be really amazed at the results if you take advantage of the plan I show you. All right, folks, have a great day. Don't forget to do your discussion boards. Discussion board that's due this week. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to send me a text or an email. But otherwise, I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care. Bye.